So do I think Bronny belong in the league? Hell no. He ain't that good. He ain't even that good to be playing overseas against them overseas players.
Do that with nobody else.
I feel you.
If this was not LeBron James' son, the Lakers would not take the time to build with him and invest the time and the resources that they're doing if this wasn't LeBron James' son.
Yeah.
They're only doing this out of nepotism.
So do I think Bronny belong in the league? Hell no. He ain't that good. He ain't even that good to be playing overseas against them overseas players. Bronny need to be a high school assistant basketball coach or a PE teacher somewhere. But he ain't good enough to play in no league.
Stephen A. Smith went on air and explicitly called him unprepared. Shortly after, LeBron James confronted him right on the court face to face, with every camera capturing the exchange. There was no hiding from that interaction. We are talking about Bronny James here. That video didn't just trend, it absolutely detonated online. We need to pause and dissect this. Because this situation transcends basketball, it is a collision of massive expectations, pressure, and reality. Occasionally, the sports world produces a moment that pierces through the usual noise. It isn't about highlights or box scores. It is raw tension you can sense through the screen. That is what we saw here. Unfiltered and messy, the friction caused by the burden of a legendary surname clashing with the struggle to perform. And the question everyone is circling, whether they say it aloud or not, remains. Is Bronny James actually NBA ready? Here is why this specific incident resonated so deeply. The Los Angeles Lakers selected Bronny with the 55th overall pick in the 2024 draft. That single decision immediately ignited arguments across the entire sports landscape. Well into 2025, people are still debating that selection daily because the public never viewed it as a pure basketball move. Bronny entered the league carrying a type of baggage no other rookie has ever had to shoulder. He is more than just a roster spot. He is a symbol of legacy, privilege, and access, the focal point of every argument regarding merit in pro sports. Unfortunately, the statistics tell a bleak story. By late 2025, Bronny had played in only 10 NBA games, averaging a mere 2.1 points and 1.8 assists. His shooting sat at 29.6% from the field and 27.3% from deep. Those numbers give critics plenty of ammunition to ask the hard questions. The NBA is unforgiving. It offers no patience, no grace periods, and you cannot hide behind potential when the job demands nightly performance. But here is where the controversy really flares up. Bronny secured a 4-year, $7.9 million contract fully guaranteed. Everyone knows that getting that level of security as a late second-round pick is extremely rare. That contract detail threw fuel on an already raging fire. It shifted the narrative away from being a simple story about player development. It became a discussion about fairness and expectations. Is the intense pressure helping him grow, or is it drowning him before he can learn to swim? Is it fair? No, but life rarely is. Listen, for the young people watching, sometimes hard work doesn't guarantee success. You can do everything right, grind every day, and still not reach the top. I am glad you mentioned the nepotism angle, because ignoring it doesn't help anyone. I applaud you for putting it on the table, especially since people were whispering about it for weeks leading up to the draft. Family connections have existed in the NBA for a long time, at every level, yet, historically, nobody really voiced concerns about it. I cannot remember it ever being this polarized of an issue before. Usually, players selected that late in the draft end up on two-way contracts with almost zero job security. They face partial guarantees and strict performance requirements, constantly fighting for their spot. Getting millions of dollars and a guaranteed roster spot with those numbers simply does not happen in this league unless your last name opens doors. And that is where the conversation gets truly contentious. Reports surfaced claiming that Rich Paul, LeBron's agent and the founder of Clutch Sports, warned teams against selecting Bronny. Allegedly, teams were told that if Bronny was not drafted exactly where his camp wanted, he would bypass the NBA entirely and take his talents to an international league. That maneuver shifted the entire dynamic. Whether you view it as smart strategy or aggressive leverage, the outcome was undeniable. It effectively steered Bronny directly to the Lakers, fulfilling LeBron's public ambition of playing alongside his son. For a portion of the fan base, it was a heartwarming, full-circle moment. For others, it looked like the league was bending the knee. That context leads us directly to the footage that completely hijacked social media. The clip that went viral showed Lakers head coach J.J. Redick losing his composure on the sideline. The frustration was visible. This was not a quiet teaching moment. It was a raw, emotional outburst, captured in high definition. Reports suggest the incident occurred after Bronny hesitated and passed up a wide-open jump shot. In the NBA, that is a cardinal sin. This is especially true given the coach's .5 system, which demands making a decision to shoot, pass, or drive within half a second. Allegedly, Redick screamed at him, telling him to just shoot the damn ball. That line encapsulated the mounting frustration. In that game, Bronny played 10 minutes and only took 2 shots. Think about that, just 2 attempts in 10 full minutes. You rarely see that kind of hesitation at the professional level. Usually, players fighting for minutes do the opposite. They try to force the action to prove they belong. Playing that passively sends a loud signal, intentional or not. Naturally, the video spread instantly. Views skyrocketed, memes flooded the timelines, and sports commentators everywhere weighed in. Some defended Redick, arguing he was simply doing his job by holding the rookie accountable. Others pushed back, claiming that screaming at a 21-year-old who is already under a microscope just adds unnecessary pressure. Then Charleston White entered the conversation. Never one to filter his thoughts, he condensed the entire debate into one brutal line. He didn't earn it. When I discussed Bronny earlier in the season and pointed out that he wasn't ready, I wasn't attacking the kid. I was calling out LeBron James. LeBron never addresses that part, and nobody presses him on it. But wasn't it LeBron who claimed his son was already better than current NBA players before he was even drafted? Didn't he tell the league, if you want me, draft my son, just so he could have his farewell tour? He essentially bypassed the meritocratic system of the NBA to get what he wanted. So when he claims I am attacking his son, he is being dishonest. When he approached me courtside at the Knicks game, he was pushing a false narrative. He caught me off guard by saying, "You can't be trashing my son." But let's look at the reality. Bronny's freshman year at USC was underwhelming. He averaged 4.8 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 2.1 assists while shooting 36.6%. For a one-and-done prospect, those stats usually result in going undrafted. Period. That is how the system usually functions. No mystery, no debate, but that isn't what happened here. And every single person watching understands why. Following the sideline blow-up, Bronny spoke to reporters and surprised many with his composure. He didn't make excuses or point fingers. Instead, he explained his focus on off-ball movement and credited the tough coaching. He noted that the team already has primary ball handlers, acknowledging that his role requires him to shoot when open and find ways to be effective without dominating possession. It was a polished, mature response. And briefly, the numbers backed him up. Shortly after the incident, on November 22nd, 2025, he returned to the G League and delivered what many called his best performance of the season. He put up 15 points, hitting 5 of 10 shots, handed out 8 assists, pulled down 4 boards, and snatched 3 steals during a 115-95 victory against the Santa Cruz Warriors. For a brief second, it felt like the momentum was actually turning, but that sense of calm, it didn't stick around. A few weeks down the road, another clip surfaced, and this one made the previous Reich incident look tame. In December 2025, during a game with the South Bay Lakers, Bronny got into a fiery verbal clash with a staff member, likely interim head coach Perry Huang or an assistant. The footage revealed obvious friction, harsh words, flying, and an intense debate over play calls and what insiders described as a sluggish start. Then came the moment that shocked everyone. Bronny actually walked away while the coach was still talking. Really think about that. He turned his back and left the court right in the middle of the argument. The video hit YouTube on December 5th, 2025, titled "Bronny James Walks Off Court, Heated Clash," and it went viral immediately. The internet pounced, and his stat line that night didn't help his case. Bronny ended the night with 10 points on 4 of 12 shooting, missed all 5 of his 3-pointers, grabbed 5 rebounds, dished 1 assist, and coughed up 4 turnovers. That is not the kind of performance that earns you the leverage to talk back to your coach. Now, let's be clear. There was no physical fight, no swinging, no shoving, nothing like that. It was strictly a shouting match. But the raw emotion caught on video shifted the narrative completely. Once that footage hit the web, the discourse around Bronny took a sharp turn. Social media became a battleground over coaching methods and accountability. Some stood by Reich and the G League staff, arguing, "This is the exact type of pressure every rookie needs to face." Others disagreed, claiming the microscope on Bronny is already heavy enough, and moments like this just add unnecessary weight. But honestly, you cannot act like that on the airwaves. I honestly had no clue what he was referring to, so I was blindsided. If he had walked up and asked, "What the hell are you doing talking about me as a father?" I would have told him, "It is because of how you are parading your son around on the basketball court for public consumption. LeBron made this public. The only reason the kid is in the NBA is because he is LeBron's son. That is nepotism, plain and simple, brother. Stephen A. has every right to voice that opinion. You cannot get angry at a take like that. And maybe that is the actual tragedy of this whole situation. You have a young guy trying to carve out his own path, earning his stripes against lower-level competition, and busting his tail to prove he belongs in the league. Because even though haters are going to hate regardless, their arguments lose steam fast when you perform, when you prove you belong, just like he started to show last night. So, props to Bronny James, but he has to keep grinding. It is a marathon, baby, not a sprint. Former players weighed in too. Kwame Brown claimed Bronny's roster spot is purely a gift from LeBron. Chandler Parsons called the draft pick embarrassing nepotism. Those comments resonated. And that is where this goes beyond just missed jumpers or tough coaching. This is the point where the narrative spirals into something much larger. The nepotism argument won't go away. It is front and center. Here is the harsh reality shaking up the whole discussion. The debate has morphed into a full-on culture war. But here is the twist nobody is slowing down to look at yet. There is another angle here. Not everyone thinks LeBron is the villain. Actually, some argue this is exactly what a good dad is supposed to do. You protect your child, you open doors, and you give them a shot to succeed. That perspective is gaining ground. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski shut down the nepotism outrage entirely, reminding everyone the NBA has been built on nepotism for decades. It is in ownership, front offices, coaching staffs. It is everywhere. He is right. The Buss family has run the Lakers since 1979. Danny Ainge's son climbed the ladder with the Jazz. Mike Malone's dad was a legendary assistant who helped jumpstart his career. Josh Kroenke runs the Nuggets because his father, Stan Kroenke, owns the franchise. The Colangelo family has held power across multiple front offices for generations. This league runs on famous last names. It always has. Some cultural critics even took it a step further, framing the Bronny situation as black nepotism being used as a power move. Their point is simple but hard for some to swallow. Minority families rarely get access to these power structures, systems historically controlled by wealthy white dynasties. From that perspective, LeBron helping his son is just him doing what those other families have done quietly for years. He is just doing it out in the open. But one voice cut through the noise and made people stop and listen. Stephen A. Smith. Before we get into his comments, you need the context. In March 2025, LeBron James confronted Stephen A. It happened courtside during a Lakers versus Knicks game. Cameras caught the exchange, clips went viral, and Stephen A. had to address it on air. Then, things got messy. After LeBron appeared on Pat McAfee's show to respond, Stephen A. went back on his own platform and completely flipped the script. What followed was one of the most intense media feuds this whole saga has seen. Stephen A. went on a rampage, defending his position with his trademark heat. No filter, no backing down, and definitely no soft landings. We are not rolling the dice. There was not enough data. It is like having a cardiac arrest. It is over. We do not want that on our resume. They were not going to clear him to play. And he told me, "Man, I'm going to be honest with you. It took me about 2.5 years to finally get back to feeling normal, my body, my mind. And you know, I was 23 years old. Bronny was 19. It is going to take time. I reasoned with that. But you have to realize, he is doing things right now in less than 2 years. Look, Bronny isn't perfect, and I am the first one to call out his flaws on the basketball court but nowhere else. But let me tell you something. The kid is striving for greatness. He has never cheated the game. That brother works his tail off to improve every single day. Emulate Pops to the best of your ability, and you will be just fine." LeBron's own comments didn't help cool things down either. He famously claimed Bronny was better than half the guys on League Pass before the kid was even drafted. That statement did not age well, and the critics have never let him forget it. At this point, the debate has consumed everything. Every game Bronny plays, every brick, every sideline argument caught on tape gets dragged back into the same question. Does he deserve this spot? Maybe that is the real issue here. A young player trying to find his footing in the most unforgiving league on earth. While nobody talks about development, patience, or growth, the conversation always circles back to his last name. So, where does this actually leave Bronny James? Where does it leave the Lakers? And what about a basketball audience so addicted to the drama that they can barely watch the game anymore? Let's hit the brakes and look at the fact. By January 2026, Bronny had appeared in 45 total games across the NBA and G League. His averages sat at 1.6 points, 1.1 assists, and 0.8 rebounds, shooting 30.2% from the field and 25% from deep. There is no sugarcoating it. Those numbers are rough, but they don't tell the whole story. There have been flashes, real flashes. On December 31st, 2025, Bronny put together what many called a breakthrough performance in the G League. He dropped 20 points on 8 of 11 shooting, grabbed 5 boards, and dished 7 assists against the Memphis Hustle. That is the kind of night that changes how coaches view a player. It makes people pause and say, wait a second, his strengths are starting to surface. You see the defensive IQ, the athleticism, the playmaking in transition, and the occasional burst of aggression at the rim. His weaknesses are just as glaring. Inconsistent shooting and a career 27% mark from distance, shooting 3% from beyond the arc, struggling with decision-making, and lacking the size for his position. That's the narrative. But people are glossing over the context. In July 2023, Bronny suffered a cardiac arrest at a USC practice due to a congenital heart defect. He needed surgery and sat out a massive chunk of his college career. That isn't just a minor hurdle. That isn't something a teenager simply shrugs off and forgets about. For a 19-year-old to face his own mortality, look death in the face, and then grind his way back to elite athletics, that requires a level of mental fortitude most people can't comprehend. Bronny finally addressed the noise in a rare interview with The Athletic in March 2025. He didn't shy away from the nepotism claims. Instead, he admitted he uses them as fuel. He said, "I see everything. It fuels me a little bit." That quote holds more weight than any box score stat. Beneath the media circus and the hot takes, there is a young athlete trying to transmute all that pressure into actual growth. And surprisingly, the Lakers are holding the line. It is January 2026, and the front office hasn't made any panic trades or reactionary cuts. Even with Bronny struggling to find his rhythm, the team sits at 25-20, locked in on the big picture. The internal message is clear. If you mess up in practice, you're getting called out. If the film shows a mistake, you're going to hear about it. That is the only way a locker room survives. If the players sense a double standard for the coach's favorite, you lose the team instantly. So the strategy has to be ironclad. It's simple, really. Do the job. Coach the kid. Coach him with the intent to win games. Experts tracking this situation generally foresee 2 scenarios. But this also raises the question, what does the twilight of LeBron James's career look like amidst this dynamic? Listen, his son is on the roster. We know the critics are going to scream nepotism at LeBron regardless of the actual basketball product. They'll point to the friction. Udonis Haslem warned weeks ago that things would get tight in that locker room once Redick took the helm, not just because Bronny is there, but because of the history. You have a head coach who was podcasting with the star player mid-season. That complicates things. But honestly, what force is stronger than a parent's instinct? Nothing on earth overrides the drive to protect and support your child. Navigating a professional season with your son as a teammate, there is no playbook for that. Nobody has walked this path before. It guarantees incredible emotional highs and some crushing lows. Analysts watching the development curve usually point to 2 outcomes. Path 1. Bronny evolves into a legitimate defensive stopper. Picture a gritty, high IQ glue guy, maybe in the vein of a Colin Gillespie. Path 2. The growing pains persist until LeBron retires, likely around 2026 or 2027. But there is a twist here. The real issue might not be the player. It might be about the culture of consumption. It's about how we digest sports, the outrage machine we feed, and whether we even allow rookies the space to fail in an era of instant viral judgment. When Redick blows up on the sidelines or there's a G League walk-off, those aren't just clips. They act as Rorschach tests for the entire NBA fan base. Half the world sees necessary discipline and accountability. The other half sees public humiliation. Some see a father bending the league to his will. Others see a system finally cracking open for different bloodlines. The truth usually lies in the messy middle. But let's be real. Bronny James is not an NBA-ready player today. That isn't hate. It is an objective assessment of the current reality. The compelling story is whether he gets the time and patience to develop into one. That window remains open only as long as his father stands as a titan of the sport. As long as the nepotism debate burns, and as long as every turnover gets memed into oblivion, Bronny James will remain one of the most polarizing and deeply human figures in pro sports. Ultimately, he is a 21-year-old trying to carve out an identity not as the king's son, but as a baller in his own right. Whether the world lets him do that is the real question. If you dug this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you catch the next one. Click the video on your screen now to keep watching.